Let's begin with comments that we just heard last hour from UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who said that Putin really underestimated not just the unity of the West, but really Ukraine's leader and the strength and resilience of the Ukrainian people to stand up against him. What do you make of that? Do you think Putin has been taken by surprise?
Certainly, and not only underestimating the response of the West in general and the response of the Ukrainians, but also overestimating what he was able to do in the field in terms of the military. In his comments over the last number of years and as well as like weeks and months, he has talked about Ukraine as an artificial state. He's talked about it as made by the Soviets. He's talked about the Ukrainians as being just a part of Russia, and he's described, President Zelensky in very negative personal terms, as well as calling the entire, Ukrainian leadership as being Nazis, neo-Nazis, and so forth. So, in no particular way did he have a sort of clear understanding of what he was getting into, and that's what led into a war based on political assumptions that were completely divorced from reality. That the Ukrainian people would just welcome the Russian soldiers coming in, welcome them with flowers as liberators, and that they would all turn on the Zelensky regime instead of defending their country as because it's their home, their homeland, etc. The Russian war plan was to win in 3 days and then essentially collect surrenders from the rest of the country over the next couple of weeks. And so obviously they did not capture Kiev in 3 days.
So, you're an expert and a scholar of strategy. How could Putin have miscalculated so badly?
At minimum, this is the consequence of not having other political institutions to provide checks and balances and to provide good information.
Living in an echo chamber?
Certainly, the number of people that he probably talks to on a weekly basis can't be more than one or two dozen. And so if all those people have their positions, their wealth, their power by telling the boss good news and not telling him bad news, then the amount of information and the kind of information that's reaching Putin is, yes, boss, this is going to be great. You're going to win. People are going to love you. This will be a short, quick, glorious war. And you'll be able to use that enthusiasm in order to go after all of your domestic political opponents. I mean, in a sense, one of the reasons, like as someone who studied Russia, his entire adult life, this looks a lot like 1905, the Russian Tsar thinking a short, quick, glorious war against the Japanese would help with domestic discontent at home. The years change, but the Russian political system doesn't. And so Putin thought this would be the way to get out of a lot of negative domestic news, and it didn't happen. So it's in fact going to compound. By losing the ability to be feared abroad, it's going to embolden his domestic political opponents at home. And that comes from not having bad news and hard information coming from the advisors who are incentivized to do no such thing.
So where then do you see this heading?
I mean, nowhere good for anybody, because at this point, the Russians are starting to step down from their initial demands, but not in any way that is substantive. Of all of the Russian demands, which include the demilitarization of Ukraine, that Ukraine has to change its constitution to assert its neutrality, indefinitely. Ukraine has to recognize Crimea as part of Russia, Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics as independent states. The only thing they've really given up on is regime change as an explicit goal, what they called denazification. But given all that, they're still not doing very well in the field. So the only real options they have is to start to reduce the Ukrainian cities to rubble. And if that basically is able to defeat the conventional Ukrainian army, then basically the prize that they get for that is a nationwide insurgency that is funded and supported by the West. That's on the battlefield. In terms of what's happening at home in the Russian economy and in the Russian society is on the verge of breaking in a substantive sense. Because even though Putin has all the coercive abilities in order to maintain, his power, to be coup-proofed and so forth, the reality is tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people have left or are leaving the country, ahead of their fear of the borders being closed. The economy at this point is the ruble has lost half its value in the last week and a half. the number of things I could go on, but we're talking about Russia defaulting on its debts. We're talking about supply chains which have been severed because Russia cannot be supplied by air or sea anymore. We're talking about social breakdown within Russia in a span of several weeks as soon as the imports start to dry up and the reserves and the stockpiles, of various things get used up. And then we're in a very dark place for Russia. And that is basically something of international importance because although Ukraine is interdependent and clearly suffering from an invasion, it still is at this point a much smaller place compared to Russia. Russia still is a country of, well, at least before the war, 145 million people. So if it experiences some cataclysmic change, then that will go into several different regions of the world. And we're in a very different world at that point.
And listening to you, I'm thinking about where this conversation started, and it comes back to what's Putin thinking? Wow, when you lay it all out like that. Yuval Weber, please come back and talk to us again. Enjoyed speaking with you. Yuval is a research assistant professor and Bren Chair of Russian Military and Political Strategy at the Brut Krulak Center at the Marine Corps University.